Okay guys, so in this video we're going to look at what a multiple of a number is. We're also going to look at what common multiples of two different numbers are, and we're going to look at a visual way to go about finding these two different terms. Okay, so when looking at multiples, let's look at the definition first. So by definition, a multiple is a number that can be divided by another number with no remainder. So thinking about that definition and what we know about multiplication, another way to think about this, or another way to approach this definition, is to think of the term multiple is to think about a number being multiplied by another number, and then the product of those two numbers being the multiple of those two numbers. So this list kind of explains visually, we can kind of see that the 4 times the 1, 4 times 2, 4 times 3, and 4 times 4, and we see those products right there. So we have 4, 8, 12, and 16 as the products. So we can see that those, and then so on as you keep going further, multiplying by more integers, those are going to be the multiples of 4. So as we can see, there are going to be an infinite amount of multiples for any number because there are an infinite amount of integers. Alright, now let's look at a different visual representation of a multiple and look to see how we can determine common multiples among different numbers. So I chose to use Skittles to represent my different numbers visually. So these two Skittles in this group here are going to represent the number 2, and then the 3 Skittles up here are going to represent the number 3. So you can see that we have 6 2s and 5 3s. Alright, so thinking about the total number of Skittles, let's think when there's 3 groups of this 2, we have a total number of 6, as you can count up. And when there's 2 groups of the 3, we can see there's a total number of 6 as well. So this tells us that when we have 2 numbers and we multiply them by each other, the 2 and the 3 multiplied by each other to get 6, we're going to have a common multiple there. We can also see another common multiple. When there's 4 groups of 3, we have 12 total Skittles. And when there's 6 groups of 2, we also have 12 total Skittles. So 12 would be another common multiple between the number 2 and the number 3. So this is kind of a visual way to look at it and determine the different multiples of different numbers and the common multiples of the numbers as well. So as we saw by the definition and through the representation with Skittles, we can find the multiples of a number by multiplying that number by any integer. For instance, we have this 2 times the 3. The 3 would be the integer, and then to find the multiple of 6. Same thing for the 3 times 2 down there. The 2 is just any integer. And then we can also multiply 2 numbers together to get a common multiple between those numbers, as we saw with the 2 and the 3, as you can see right here. And then we can also find common multiples by listing out even more, as you can see with the Skittle visual representation. But you can just keep multiplying by each integer to find the multiples of that number.